thank you first. I'd like to thank NGDE for inviting me here. This is my first time in Bonn. And question, raise your hands if you don't want to see something new. So I assume everyone here wants to see something new. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. That's why, yeah, I'll be doing this presentation because I'm very excited to bring this here. So who am I again? I'm Devlin Duldulao. I moved to Norway 5 years ago, originally from Manila, Philippines. And then, yeah, during the pandemic, I got nothing to do. I cannot go home, so I decided to write books and, written it also with others. So TanStack Query gives you declarative, always up-to-date, auto-managed queries imitation that directly improve both your developer and user experiences. But let's get to the point here in the beginning. This is not a data fetching library or an HTTP client library. This is a managing tool for asynchronous data. A proper term can be a server state data management. So TanStack Query, formerly React Query, became very popular not long time ago. It used to be just for React, but now it has modules for Svelte, Solid.js, Vue.js, and Angular. So weekly downloads would be 4 million. Not that bad. Actually, it's good, right? It's a sign. So let's get started. In Redux, there is a single source of truth. We save states from users' synchronous data or synchronous actions, and we also save state from the data that we get from HTTP requests, right? The spinner always shows when you navigate, or when the user navigates back and forth for pages that requires data from an API and API endpoint. So me, 3.5 years ago, working from home because of COVID, I was playing around with React Query, the old name of TanStack Query. And then after a few days of playing around, I started to understand that TanStack purpose is for server state data management, while Redux or MobX are ideal for client state management. Server state is simply the data you get from HTTP requests or async functions. For example, in NGRX, the state is, this is the state you get from your side effects, right? It could be an error message or the response data, depending on situation. So client state is your application state that comes from synchronous functions. An example of this would be user settings, dark theme, light theme. Let's talk about caching mechanism in server state data management library. There's so many things you can do with cache. This is similar to the cache feature in Apollo client library. If you're working on a, let's say, in GraphQL application, you would get right away what cache can do for you. So it shows the spinner or the loader only one time, and then no more spinners or loaders ever. Feels instant when navigating back and forth, because the in-memory cache, along with the TanStack library, is handling background fetch for you. Spinners are not bad, by the way. You just need to know when and where to use them. Like, for example, inside the small input field, text field search, or a small button inside a form element, right? This is so good, and that's why I'm excited. I'm here, right? And I want to bring this technology from React because I work as a consultant. I work on Vue.js application, Angular applications, in React applications. There's one thing that I like about React is because of this tooling here, and now they're available. It is available now in Angular. It is so good that the creator of the popular client state management library in Vue.js community created also an async state management library called Piña Colada. But they can also use the TanStack query in Vue.js applications. Anyways, the point here is that async state management tool or server state data management tool becoming more and more popular because it solves not just a problem, but a common problem. Normally, web or mobile applications get data from the internet all the time. And that's a fact. Now, let's take a look at several benefits of TanStack Query. There are some powerful things. We're going to do a quick here so we can move to the demo. Automatic caching, optimistic updates, everyone knows that. Stale while revalidate, or SWR. So your states in the UI are still available even they are not fresh, or the data is not, stale, not fresh anymore. But it is being updated in the background. So that's stale while revalidate. So I mentioned being updated in the background. So that's the background of refetching. Pagination and infinite queries. Pagination is easy, but in infinite queries, this is hard, especially if you're going to write it your own. You'll be facing different bugs and performance issues. Normally, infinite queries requires a library. It's better if you use the library. Pagination, you can do it yourself. Prefetching is really good. And you can see it later. I will show it to you later. This is similar to the web standard preload and prefetching. So it's just preparing the data for the user. So when the user navigates, you don't see any spinner because the data is already there, right? So yeah, and the demo later. Query invalidation. So ensures that display data is always current. It's just going to tag that this is not fresh anymore and just refetch it. The duplication, so query the duplication, you'll see it later in the demo. It's better if you can see it right in an application than in code, than in theory. So let's move to, next would be custom garbage collection time and stale time. So this is GC time. This is if the cache is no longer active for the default here, it's 5 minutes. Stale meaning it's not fresh anymore, ready for fetching. And most of the time, it's in the GC time. It's when the user, meaning if it's inactive, meaning the user is away from that screen with this query. So offline support. So because you have cache, you'll be able to do this. Good. Demo time. So I think this time I need to mirror. OK, it's mirror now. That's good. OK. So this is the app. We have DevTools here. This is why this is very good because you have a helper here. So first demo, we're going to do it from left to right so it's not confusing. We have here a prefetching. So prefetching, it's loading. So I'm sending HTTP requests. Here's the list. Hovering. So this is like a user. Sometimes like users are thinking before they click, right? So I could be just a ordinary user. I hover my mouse because I'm reading, and then I will click. Data is there already because you're prefetching. You can see it here in the dev tool, right? Then you click it, since you hovered there earlier, everything is instant. And even if everything is instant, you can see here it's fetching in the background because you have this tool that doing this background of fetching, making sure that the data you will see eventually will be like this latest from the database, right, from the server. So that's one. And now let's see the code. Prefetching. I have here for the detailed and the list. Let's go here. OK, that's good. So you can see it clearly. So this is the one that's coming from the library itself, the TanStack Angular. Inject, query. Inject is already a reserved keyword, right? Query is also a reserved keyword in Angular, so inject query is a good choice for naming it. So the important part here is you have the query key. This is basically the cache in the key for the caching mechanism. It's an array of strings. As you can see here, I have different here. This is just like a dictionary, so I won't get misspelled or whatever. Query function. This is your function, and basically it's just an HTTP client module, and then you'll be using this last value from, because the query function needs a function that returns a promise. So it's promise-based. And this is also exactly the same in React or Vue.js. And you have this stale time, which is by default, it's 0. GC time, by default, is 5 minutes. The reason I put it in infinity, just to do a demo here, right? Otherwise, it will keep on refetching if I hover here. So I have to put it in infinite. So this is very granular for you to, you have to decide which part of your application will be refetching, and which part of your application, will be just like there for, maybe it depends. It could be like 10 minutes before it refetched, depending on the situation. And the part here where when the user hovers and then doing the refetch is this handle mouse on enter. This query client is coming from inject query client, which is your, this is the cache manager here. See? So yeah, this is another query. 4 things to remember. Easy, right? Now let's move to another showcase here, the duping. OK, what's happening there? It's like there are 3 loaders, right? Let's do it again. Whoops. So we have here in network tab post 1 and 3 users. Let's open up the dev tool here, the TanStack dev tool. You can see the post here. There are 3 observers here. So meaning 3 components are consuming here. Let's see the code here. The duping. So this is a reusable query. I separate it in a folder, in a file, so I can reuse it. So basically, earlier, I put it in a component, so it's easier to read, right? But normally, this is how you're going to do it. You put it in a separate file. And yeah. So query name, a query key, post. The HTTP request is here. The post is, I was slow here, users post. But when you go here, all of them actually are consuming the, for example, this one, 1, 2, and 3. So 3 components are consuming this inject query, which sends HTTP requests. But what's good here is refreshing it. You don't have to deal with this issue of, I have multiple requests in the same time. The library handles this automatically. It frees your mind away from tracking how many components are using this service. No, you don't have to deal with it. Dealing with it, just using HTTP client, look at here, you're sending multiple requests versus TanStack Query, just 1 request. So that's the duping. Let's move to optimistic update cache. I think this is easy, so everyone knows this, right? You can just, so this is through HTTP request. Deleting one of these will send an HTTP request. But it's like, it feels instant because you did the optimistic update. So I would say this is pretty much similar with other libraries if you implement your own, implement this optimistic update. Again, you need a place where you can create a snapshot, I name it backup, and then use that in an error. If I need to use that to roll back, I'm going to put it in on error, on success. I don't have to do anything because this is optimistic update, right? And then on the action here, as you can see, while mutating, well, actually, I already replaced the cache with the new state for the UI. So you see that it happens quickly, like instantly, because I mutated the cache. So pretty much, this is it. And then you'll be using this inject mutation. So that's for the movies component, which is for the optimistic update. Let's see what's, OK. I think that's all for this optimistic update. What about polling? Let's do polling here. I'm going to click this. Move it here. You can see it here. It's OK. It, and then slip. So a library for doing polling. As you can see here, green, refetching, and then you have this automatically here. So let's look at the code. Polling, very simple. As you can see, it's just a refetch interval. And then you'll be adding a millisecond in value here. So yeah, I said it in 10 seconds, but I created a way here to edit it just for demo purposes. Oops. So it's every second it's just requerying it or refetching. So that's for the polling. So still have time. Pagination. We have to close this first. Good thing it's big enough for you to see it. Loading, loading. But you can see here, I click it. It has to navigate. It's loading. You have this loading here. But you can still see something on the UI, right? In my opinion, this is a better UX for the user, since you don't want this to be like gone away and then nothing's there. So this is a feature in TanStack Query. Then back and forth. Of course, it's going to be fast now because you already stored it in the cache. So what's the code here? You have this stale time. I just put it in 1 minute, so it will not be like automatically refetch every time I move around. We have this placeholder data, which keeps the previous data on the UI while refetching. That's why you see this state on the UI while you're doing your refetch for the next page. So yeah, this is very easy for pagination. Of course, you need to include your page size, whatever, and then do it in the HTTP requests here. Next would be infinite scrolling. So the difference here is pagination. The user needs to click a button, right, to navigate. In order to navigate and get this next page on the UI. In infinite scrolling, you don't need to navigate. The point here is the user can scroll up and down and see what's the next data. So it's like Twitter or Facebook. The problem here is this can be problematic if you don't know what you're doing. Good thing TanStack Query is here. Let's see. What I did here is pretty much I have a max pages of 3 here, but per page is 7. So if you're going to count that rows earlier, that must be 21 because 7 times 3, 21, max pages 3. So the way it works is you have this batch, 3 batches of 7 rows, and then when you scroll up, it just moves like that, carrying these 3 batches, and then scrolling down, carrying again these 3 batches. And then you have this get previous page, and then get next page param. So constantly it just moves 3. It's very performant. It's different if you implemented infinite queries before in mobile app or whatever. Normally you would use a library again, right? A library. And a library does this virtualize, if I remember, because that was like 3 years ago when I implemented this in a social media app. It's very important because in mobile device, mobile device have limited resources, right? And if the user keeps on scrolling and you're not recycling those screens or those components, it will just consume lots of memory in the mobile app. So what an ordinary library would do is to detach or just to remove it from if it's out of the screen. That's why it's called virtual. So it would only carry, it would only cache what's visible in the screen, and the rest will be detached from the DOM, something like that. That's different. This is different. This is carrying a batch of pages and then putting in a cache, and then it will only refetch depending on how you configure it. It doesn't do this virtualization thing for you or detaching node, but they, different approach, but same output, same problem that they're solving. It's to free up some memory, and then eventually here is to save HTTP requests. So, oops. So yeah, it's just still 21 rows, no matter what. So yeah, that's all for the demo. We can now go back to the slides. We have 6 minutes here. So let's talk about migrations. So I'm just going to show you a few things in these brownfield projects migrations. When in fetching migrations, RxJS way, NGRX way, and you have this Angular Query way, right? The docs of Angular Query is complete with examples for fetching. What about storing data migrations? RxJS way, for anyone who's not using any state management libraries. You would use this, right? In NGRX, you're using store. In Angular Query, it automatically cached by query key. What about data mutations migrations? RxJS, manually trigger changes by a subject or direct observable. You have this NGRX, action reducer, effects for handling create, update, delete. Angular Query, inject mutation to handle create, update, delete operations in validating cache. So what else? Some functionalities here, like loading state and background fetching, are normally written manually. Note here, that's why there's like this strike through here. Do not migrate your existing global state management from synchronous functions because TanStack Query focuses on server state, data fetch from APIs. That's a different problem that it's solving, so don't migrate it. What about greenfield projects? What if you're starting from scratch? For managing your client state, try Angular Redux by Corbin Crutchley and his team. You get the dev tools, plus you can reuse your skills here in, for example, in React world. Same for TanStack Angular Query in the server state data. You can reuse what you have learned here in building also React application. Key takeaways. TanStack Query is not a data fetching library. Client state, NGRX, Akita, NGXX, etc. are good, but inefficient in storing asynchronous data because they don't have cache. Server state, responsible for managing asynchronous operations between your server and client. Cache is very powerful. Resources, go straight to the well-written docs, tanstack.com query. And Netanel Basal has a version of TanStack Query in Angular. It was started before Signal arrived to Angular. The query function and mutation function, they return observables, by the way. And then this demo, you can get it in github.com. In my repo here, it's public, Angular Query demo. And before I go, I have a simple food for a thought here. A Greek philosopher once said, the only constant in life is change. Don't be afraid. Try TanStack Angular Query. Thank you.